What is up guys, Jarv here, back today jumping into Destiny 2. In today's video we're taking a look at all the ultimate weapons for PvE for any activity. So whether you like to run strikes, master nightfalls, or later in the season grandmaster nightfalls and master raids, then be sure to stick around and enjoy the video. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to leave a comment and rating down below, and remember to subscribe for more Destiny 2 content. Just over 70% of the viewers on the channel aren't currently subscribed, so be sure to hit that red button and ring that bell to make sure you don't miss an update. But without further delay guys, let's jump into the video. Now each and every season we get a brand new seasonal artifact, and with that we see a shift in meta, not just in PvP but also PvE. Now with the removal of Breach and Clear and the introduction of particle deconstruction, this has completely changed the meta for end game pieces of PvE content. The idea behind this video today is to highlight the top 10 weapons that you could take into any activity in Destiny 2, whether that be a simple strike or a master raid. Now the first weapon we're going to take a look at is the Null Composure. This is a void rapid frame fusion rifle from Season of the Spicer. Now as this is a ritual weapon, it has double perks in both the third and fourth column, allowing you to adjust the weapon itself depending on the activities that you're choosing to run. Another thing to bear in mind is as a ritual weapon it also has a fixed role, so this will be the same role for absolutely everyone. So if you haven't got your hands on the Null Composure, you will need to complete the ritual weapon quest from Season 14. Now upon the launch of Season 15, Bungie made some sweeping changes to fusion rifles overall, adjusting all the archetypes of the weapons within the fusion rifle range. Now it's with those changes that rapid fire frame fusions are some of the best for single target damage. So not just the Null Composure, but also the Cartesian Coordinate are some of the best DPS fusions in the game. So it's with that in mind, this is going to be perfect for not just GMs, but also master raids later in the season. They're fantastic against any champions, but also bosses that you face during those activities. Now particle deconstruction will massively boost this weapon's output, and as well as that, fusion rifles are the unstoppable champion weapons for Season 15. Those two additions alongside the fusion rifle rework for Season 15 make this an excellent utility weapon. So as we said earlier in the video, if you haven't yet got the Null Composure or a good Cartesian Coordinate, be sure to get that quest done back from Season 14. Now the next weapon we're going to take a look at is the Monarque. This is the exotic combat bow from Season of the Forges. If you haven't got your hands on this, you can pick it up from the Monument of Lost Lights over in the tower. Now much like the Null Composure, this is also a void weapon. However, this one uses primary ammo, and with the changes to Season 15 and the introduction of unlimited primary ammo, you'll never be short of bows to fire when using the Monarque. Now this weapon comes with the exotic intrinsic trait Poison Arrows. So arrows fired quickly after a full draw become poison arrows, and precision hits with those poison arrows will spread poison to nearby enemies. Now bows this season are also the overload champion weapons for Season 15, and with a weapon like the Monarque that can deal poison damage that deals damage over time, this is fantastic for continuously stunning those types of champions. Tiku's Divination is also a fantastic alternative, and when you have the Catalyst, you can prime and detonate those targets, applying burn to overload champions too. So if you need to run a void bow for void shields, or if you want to run a solar bow for solar shields, then you have a great choice between those two bows when entering endgame pieces of content. So if you ever find yourself entering a Legend or Master Lost sector, or even a Grandmaster Nightfall later in the season, and come up against some overload champions, this is where bows really start to shine. While some of the seasonal challenges have lent on bows, especially in week 5, expect to see a lot more of them as we progress later in the season. So much like the Null Composure, once again, if you haven't got your hands on the Monarque, you can pick it up from the Monuments of Lost Light over in the tower. Now the next weapon we're taking a look at is the Fallen Guillotine. Now this was introduced back in Season of Arrivals and is a void legendary sword. Now the Fallen Guillotine is part of the world loot pool and can also be found over at Banshee 44 in the tower. So if you're still seeking out that Fallen Guillotine god roll, be sure to keep an eye on his inventory, and this will update each and every day. Now Fallen Guillotine is also a vortex frame sword, so alongside regular light attacks you can launch a heavy spin attack. The heavy attacks are stronger and will use full energy within the sword itself. Now the perfect role on something like the Fallen Guillotine would be Relentless Strikes. This is where landing 3 light attacks within a short time will grant you sword ammo. And if you pair that with Whirlwind Blade, this is where rapid sword strikes will increase the weapon's damage for a short time, allowing you to stack that and use that when launching a heavy attack. So you can use the sword against lower tier enemies to build up your damage and then deal that damage to a single target. It's fantastic for champions, more so still as swords are also the overload champion weapons for Season 15. Now, as we get into further content later in the season, such as Grandmaster Nightfalls and even Master Raids, it's likely that you may choose a different weapon when coming up against an Overload champion. They can be some of the most difficult champions to take on, especially when you're up close and personal. But with that being said, if you've got someone in your team that can stagger Overload champions continuously, then the sword is most definitely one of the quickest ways to take them out. Now, it's also worth bearing in mind the seasonal artifact when it comes to swords in Season 15. This sees the return of Passive Guard, which is fantastic for you regenerating your health in the thick of the action. There's some immensely strong builds we made way back when Passive Guard was first introduced, allowing for some pretty tanky builds out on the battlefield. If you didn't check out that build previously, I'll be sure to leave the link to that down in the video description below. And the next weapon on offer is the Witherhoard. This is the exotic grenade launcher, and this comes with the exotic intrinsic trait Primeval's Torment. And this is where projectiles fired by the weapon blight the target or nearby areas on impact. It also has Break the Bank, and this is where blighted targets take damage over time and will also blight the nearby area on death. Now, with the removal of Breach and Clear, grenade launchers have very much taken a back seat for the most part when it comes to PvE. That's with the exception of Witherhoard and possibly Anarchy still, even after a few adjustments. Now, the thing that makes Witherhoard really stand out is it's fantastic for ad clear, as well as providing additional damage to a single target. Now, if you can get the catalyst for Witherhoard, you'll max out the handling stat on this weapon. It also gains auto-loading holster, so it will automatically reload after a short period of time. Now, with the removal of Breach and Clear in Season 14, this grenade launcher is not the powerhouse it used to be in Season 15. With that being said, it's still a fantastic weapon when it comes to locking down areas and clearing large groups of ads. And the types of activities that Witherhoard really shines are some of the harder pieces of content that we face throughout the course of the season. These are things like Grandmaster Nightfalls and Master Raids, and specifically spawn camping particular enemies. So if you know exactly what doorway they're going to come out from or whereabouts the Taken are going to spawn, you can lock that down with a blight from the Witherhoard, and that will take care of any ads that choose to appear in the area. So if you're finding yourself getting overwhelmed by combatants in certain pieces of content, then it may be worth one of you equipping Witherhoard to help clear out some of these ads with relative ease. Any champions that may be left out on the battlefield can also be dealt some damage over time with a direct hit from Witherhoard itself. It won't be as strong as it was last season, but will certainly help you and your fire team out when it comes to taking out those champions in those Grandmasters later in the season. It's definitely not a weapon to be slept on, even with the removal of Breach and Clear, and I highly recommend you give it a try if you're not trying it already. And the next weapon on our list is the Fatebringer. Now, this can either be the Time Loss or the original version, and you can pick this up from the Vault of Glass raid either on the regular or master difficulty. Now, if you do get your hands on the Time Loss variant, it will have double perks in the 3rd and 4th column, pretty much guaranteeing yourself a god roll. Now, the great thing about Fatebringer, and specifically 140 RPM hand cannons in general, is they got a nice buff in Season 15. They're much more effective than they used to be, especially in those harder pieces of content. And so much still when you've got a weapon like Fatebringer that can run with explosive payload and Firefly, which you can further elevate if you've got the Time Loss version by equipping adept mods, then this hand cannon alone certainly packs a punch when it comes to those harder pieces of content. Now, explosive payload is a very strong perk as it does a area of effect damage, which is excellent for those harder activities. However, instead of Firefly though, you should be seeking out Frenzy, and this is where being in combat for extended time will increase the weapon's damage, handling and reload speed until you are out of combat. It helps the 140 RPM hand cannons hit an even harder punch, and being even more effective against those tankier combatants in harder activities. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't have Frenzy on my Time Loss version, but I do have an explosive payload and Frenzy roll on my normal version, so I'll be using that one when it comes to Grandmaster Nightfalls later in the season. Now, another perk to bear in mind, especially if you're looking to give yourself some more options in harder pieces of content when it comes to combatant shields, you should be seeking out Osmosis, and this is where using your grenade ability will change this weapon's damage type to match that of your subclass until you stow that weapon. Now, the Fatebringer is a kinetic weapon, and it doesn't come with an elemental burn, meaning you can turn the Fatebringer into any elemental weapon you want, depending on the activity that you're running. So whilst this hand cannon specifically doesn't have any champion mods this season, it does at least have the option to be any element that you want it to be, as long as you can get it to roll Osmosis in the final column. It gives it excellent weapon diversity and can come in clutch when it comes to approaching Grandmasters later in the season. And next up, we're moving on to some of the more difficult weapons to obtain inside Destiny 2. Now, one of those is called 1000 Voices, and this is the exotic heavy fusion rifle that you can get from the Last Wish raid. Now it's an RNG drop from the final chests and comes with the intrinsic trait Amonkara's Eye, and this is where charging this weapon unleashes a giant continuous beam of death. It also has unforeseen repercussions, and this is where the weapon's beam superheats its targets upon impact, causing delayed explosions. Now when you pair this with particle deconstruction, which was introduced in season 15, this is probably one of the highest DPS weapons currently inside the game. It makes short work of pretty much any champion and any boss, and could be the absolute go-to weapon when it comes to GMs later in the season. Now whilst the 1000 Voices deals incredible amounts of damage, it really struggles when it comes to its ammo economy. Now a great alternative to 1000 Voices if you're still looking to deliver insane amounts of damage is Sleeper Simulant. This is also a solar heavy weapon and is a linear fusion rifle. Now this has deeper ammo pockets and also a faster charge time as long as you have the catalyst. Now both of these weapons are insanely strong, especially for single target damage. Now unlike the Sleeper Simulant, the 1000 Voices doesn't require a precision hit and will simply just decimate any combatant put in its way. Now out of these two weapons, 1000 Voices is most definitely the easier weapon to use. It's simply a point and shoot, and that combatant will simply disappear from all existence. And as we covered earlier in the video, as a fusion rifle it also benefits from the Unstoppable Champion mod. But with the amount of damage that this weapon can simply deliver, most of the time you won't even need champion mods when it comes to taking out those targets. All in all, it's an immensely powerful weapon, made more powerful still as a result of particle deconstruction this season. So if you've got 1000 Voices in your vault and you haven't dusted it off for season 15, I highly recommend that you do and give it a try before GM's launch on the 3rd of October. Now the next weapon we're going to take a look at is the Vex Mythoclast. This is the exotic fusion rifle only made available through the Vault of Glass raid. Now much like the 1000 Voices, this is an RNG drop and is currently one of the rarest exotics inside Destiny 2. Now it comes with the exotic intrinsic trait Timeless Mythoclast, and this weapon fires in full auto when it's in its default firing mode. It also comes with the legendary trait Temporal Unlimiter, and this allows you to swap fire modes when it's fully overcharged, and this allows you to hold the trigger to charge it up and fire a more powerful linear fusion rifle shot. All in all, it's essentially a fusion rifle that fires like an auto rifle, but also has the secondary bonus of being able to fire like a linear fusion rifle. Now, as well as essentially being 3 weapons in one, it also benefits from the Unstoppable Champion mod from the seasonal artifact, alongside particle deconstruction, which helps boost its damage output. It puts Vex Mythoclast in the category of one of the strongest weapons inside Destiny 2, and with its alternative firing mode can make short work of any champions that you come up against out on the battlefield. Now based on that, if you didn't already think Vex Mythoclast was a strong weapon, it also has a catalyst, and this provides a new perk called Calculated Balance. So while in full auto mode, final blows with the weapon will grant bonus damage, accuracy and stability for a short duration. Now that stability bonus is immensely noticeable and makes Vex one of the most stable full auto weapons in the game. Not only this, it's also improving your accuracy and further still improving the weapon's damage output. Now out of all the weapons that we're covering in this video today, the Vex Mythoclast is definitely not a hard sell. It's one of the strongest all-round weapons available in Destiny 2. The hardest thing about it is actually obtaining the weapon itself. It has a drop rate of around 5% when completing the final encounter of the Vault of Glass, making it one of the rarest exotics currently in the game. But as you can see from all the information we've just covered, it will definitely be worth the effort once you can get your hands on it. Now the next weapon we're going to take a look at is the Reed's Regret. This is a legendary linear fusion rifle of Stasis Element. It's the first Stasis linear fusion rifle added to Destiny 2. Now this one's a precision frame, so it fires a long-range precision energy bolt, and the weapon's recoil pattern is more predictably vertical. Now this weapon is exclusive to Trials of Osiris that's had a complete rework in Season 15, and the great thing still is that you don't even need to go to the lighthouse to get it. As long as you interact with Trials of Osiris and level up Saint 14 over in the tower, he'll grant you access to Trials engrams. And if you hand these in at Master Rahul over in the tower, these have a chance to drop any Trials of Osiris loot. And once you've unlocked Reed's Regret in your loot pool, better still, you can use these Trials engrams to focus your loot. So if you're chasing a Reed's Regret with a specific role, and I highly recommend triple tap and vorpal weapon to ensure you have maximum damage output, then you can do that with any Trials engrams over at Saint 14 in the tower. Now the reason you want triple tap is this is where rapidly landing precision hits will return 1 round to the magazine. This is essentially giving Reed's Regret free ammo and allows for more continuous and persistent damage. And when you pair that with Vorpal Weapon, which increases your damage against bosses, vehicles and any guardians with their super active, this makes it the perfect single target weapon. Now, as with a lot of the weapons in Season 15, this also benefits from the Unstoppable Champion mod, making it fantastic against those champions in any piece of content. Further still, it will also benefit from particle deconstruction, further improving its damage output. Now, when it comes to damage output, linear fusion rifles overall got a nice buff in Season of the Lost. So all in all, linear fusion rifles are much more deadly than they've ever been inside Destiny 2. So if you don't fancy using one of the exotics we've already covered in the video for your heavy start, then Reed's Regret is a great alternative, as it's excellent at what it does and only takes up a legendary slot in your arsenal. It's definitely a weapon worth chasing, and if you haven't got the god roll of triple tap and vorpal weapon, then be sure to jump into Trials of Osiris each and every weekend. Now, the penultimate weapon in our video today is Eriana's Vow. This is an exotic hand cannon that was introduced in Season of the Undying upon the launch of Shadowkeep. Now, this has the exotic intrinsic trait, Looks Can Kill, and this weapon fires special shield piercing ammunition, and it comes with a scope, and it's strong against barrier champions. Now, a lot of the weapons that we've covered in this video are excellent against overload or unstoppable champions. Now, when it comes to barrier champions, one of the only options available other than Eriana's Vow are auto rifles. Now, all in all, auto rifles aren't in a fantastic place inside Destiny 2, especially when it comes to harder pieces of content. Now, alongside Looks Can Kill, it also comes with the additional trait Death at First Glance, and this is where you get bonus damage when aiming down sights on the opening shot of attack, and this bonus is preserved if the shot deals precision damage or strikes the elemental shield. Now, Eriana's Vow is a solar hand cannon and also has its own catalyst. Now, this catalyst gives it an additional perk called More to Give, and this increases the magazine size, as well as holstering the weapon will automatically reload it after a short time. Now, by default, Eriana's Vow comes with 6 in the magazine, and this is boosted up to 9 once you've finished the catalyst. Now, Eriana's Vow is one of the best at what it does in terms of breaking barrier shields, and as a result, it does use special ammo when out on the battlefield. So if you're looking to run Eriana's Vow, make sure to be running special ammo finders or even special ammo finishers to ensure your ammo is topped up. Now, if you don't want to use Eriana's Vow as your exotic weapon, then you could use auto rifles still. However, you will only be using those to break barrier shields, as in harder pieces of content, you'll be effectively tickling your enemies. The great thing about Eriana's Vow is not only is it fantastic for breaking those barrier shields, it hits really hard against pretty much any other combatant. It gives it excellent utility and ensures it's not a one-trick pony, especially when it comes to Grandmaster Nightfalls later in the season. So if you haven't yet picked up Eriana's Vow, you can do so from the Monument of Lost Lights over in the tower. And if you have Eriana's Vow but haven't finished the catalyst like I haven't, be sure to get that done before Grandmasters on the 3rd of October. Now, last but no means least is Ager's Sceptre. This is the exotic stasis trace rifle introduced in Season of the Lost. It comes with the exotic intrinsic trait Ager's Call, and this is where final blows with the weapon will generate a slow burst around defeated targets. It also has an additional legendary trait Raga's Refrain, and this is where stasis final blows will transfer ammo to this weapon's magazine from reserves. And to top it off, it also has its own catalyst. This grants Will Given Form, and this is where the weapon will drain super energy, overflowing the magazine and empowering the beam with bonus damage and the ability to slow and freeze targets until the magazine or super energy runs out, or until the weapon is stowed. And that can only be activated when your super energy is full. Now, if you haven't got your hands on Ager's Sceptre, you can get the quest from Mara Sav over in the Helm. But first you need to complete step 1 to 3 of the Tracing the Stars quests. Once you complete the quest from Mara Sav, she'll grant you access to the Ager's Sceptre. Now, as for the Ager's Sceptre's catalyst, this is a random drop from the trove chest upon completing the Astral alignment activity. Now, to complete the catalyst, you will need 1,000 kills, and the quickest way to do that was over in the Thrallway inside the Shattered Throne. Now, it was suggested on the catalyst that by obliterating destructible walls in the Shattered Realm will grant additional progress to completing the catalyst. However, as of the making of this video, that is not the case and is simply reliant on combatant kills. Now, a thing to bear in mind though is by defeating combatants with precision damage, that will unlock the objective faster for completing the catalyst. So be sure to aim for the head when trying to get that catalyst done. Now, the reason that the Ager's Sceptre makes the list is that it's an excellent ad clearing weapon. Final blows with the weapon will create a slowing burst around defeated targets, allowing you to control the battlefield with relative ease. And further still, it allows you to convert your super into a single target damage beam. It's effectively a stasis chaos reach for any class in the game. Now, this pairs perfectly with things like Battle Harmony if you're running a Warlock, or the Orbs of Power build I made for my Hunter earlier in the season, and I'll leave the link to that down in the video description below. Now, whilst the Ager's Sceptre won't benefit from some of the mods we've mentioned in this video, it's a standout on its own. being top tier at clearing adds and controlling combatants, whilst also providing ways to deal insane amounts of single target damage, makes this the perfect utility weapon. And if you have more than one of these running in your fire team, this can make short work of any champion and any boss at the end of any activity. So if you haven't got your hands on the Ager Sceptre, I highly recommend that you do, as it forms part of some pretty incredible builds that you can take into Grandmasters and Master Raids later in the season. So there we have it guys, a good look at the best weapons for Season 15 for any activity inside Destiny 2. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to check out one of the 2 videos you see here in these cards for more Destiny 2 content. And if you want to keep up to date with everything to do with Destiny 2, be sure to hit subscribe as well. I'm going to jump back into the game as always guys, and I will catch you all again very soon.